So George had mentioned some of the issues that we're facing at the state level and the national level. And there's no doubt the other side is very energized. And why are they energized? Because they're determined to reverse the outcome of the 2016 election. That's what this is really about, folks. When you really cut to the chase, the Democrats, if they win control of the House of Representatives, the very first item on the agenda is going to be impeachment. And they haven't shown any particular thing that would qualify as an impeachable offense. They haven't even gotten close to it. Excess tweeting is not an impeachable offense, the last time I looked. And I think what we have to do is, there is no doubt there's excessive polarization in our country. And what I try to do in Congress, I have my principles, I have the values that I grew up with my parents, and my mother in particular, who imbued in me a love of history and politics and the entire process that we are so blessed to have in this country. And you know, I actually grew up a Democrat. The very first, and I hate to disclose my age like this, but the very first political experience I had was in 1960. I was 8 years old. A John F. Kennedy for President rally at a Long Island train station where we lived. I think it was Belmore or Wantagh or someplace like that. And I still have the button, Kennedy for President. And I keep a lot of political buttons, and that's one of the ones I treasure. Not just because of the historic nature of it, because I was there with my mother. And she's the one that really taught me things like, and I love you know, she was Irish, my father was Italian, she was about 5'9", my Italian father was about 5'5". And I love the things that she taught me about, you can catch more flies with honey than you can with vinegar. And if you don't have something good to say about someone, say nothing at all. And the one I always remember when I occasionally came home too late, she would say, "I have a bone to pick with you, young man." That's when I was in college and I thought I was free and I'd come home on vacations. Didn't work that way with my mother. The point is that we have got to recognize, and I think all of us in this room recognize this, and Ken Ronk does, and George Amador does, they realize that we have our principles and our values. We also realize we fight hard for our principles. But in a process that we live in our country, where it's a very divided politically, and certainly in Congress, we have to talk to the other side in order to try to find common ground. And this is in the tradition of what Ronald Reagan used to do with Tip O'Neill. It's in the tradition of what Harry Truman did with a Republican Congress right after World War II, when they're dealing with Europe in chaos after the destruction of World War II. It's in some of the best tradition of our country. And I think, unfortunately, we get this, but so many folks right now on the other side, they preach tolerance, but they are the most intolerant people if you don't agree with them, and if you don't subscribe to everything that they want. And so now we have 7 candidates running on the other side, and I say they're on the far left and the far, far left. And it is remarkable, the things that they're saying. It is simply remarkable. Medicare for all, that's one of the arguments. What they would do is they would jeopardize Medicare, the viability of the existing system, which has financial stresses in it because of demographics in our country, not because of Democrat and Republican, but because of demographics. They would jeopardize the solvency of the existing Medicare system by bringing everyone into it. It simply wouldn't work. They also want to end all employer-provided health insurance. So if you're working and you have employer-provided health insurance, they want to end that. They think they can, through the government, make it so much better. We know from experience that this is highly unlikely to take place, highly unlikely to occur. But yet they're running around with a proposal that was a Bernie Sanders proposal that would cost trillions of dollars, would literally bankrupt our country. We have financial stresses as it is, and they just simply repeat these slogans. You know, I'm committed to try to fix and improve our healthcare system, but not simply turn it all over to the government in a system that would be completely untenable financially. The other thing, we're working right now on the Farm Bill. I serve on the Agriculture Committee in the House. We have a bipartisan bill, and then about a month ago, the Democrats stopped talking to us at all because we have a very modest but reasonable proposal that says if you are able-bodied and you're between 18 and 60 years old, and you don't have little children at home, that we expect, if you're going to collect government assistance, that you be in a job training program if you don't have a job, and that you be in work. You know, just the other day, the county announced, and I was talking to your district attorney about this a little while ago, the county announced the indictment of 6 people here in the county on food stamp fraud. And this happens in all over the country. It's not the predominant. It's not the every person is doing this, but there's a coterie of people out there who are taking advantage of the system. So what we're saying is that if you want to be in this system, if you want the government taxpayer assistance, we're going to require, if you're able-bodied, you don't have tiny kids at home, we're going to require that you be in an employment training program, that you work. This is common sense. And you know, when I talk to most average Democrats in this district, and we talk about some of these things, they're 100% for it. But the far left says no. They're not going to go along with that because they think it's punitive, and they think it's onerous, and they think somehow we're going to take food out of the mouths of children. Far from it. A family is much better off if the able-bodied adult in that family is working and has a chance at self-sufficiency than being dependent on the government. And so what we're trying to do, we're actually modernizing this. Right now the government says if you have a vehicle that's worth more than $4,650, we count that, we'll disqualify you. That was set in the 70s. We're going to raise that to $12,000. And we're going to let a poor family keep up to $2,000 in a savings account. Because if you're a kid that has to go to the doctor, they go to the dentist, or they need braces, or your car needs new brakes. You know, when you're a poor person, you got to drive 30 miles to get to your job. You know what? You need a car that can get you there. So we're modernizing the program so that it's better for people. But we also want to make sure that dependency is not encouraged, and we want to encourage independence. And that's one of the fundamental differences between those of us on our side and a lot of the folks on the far radical left. They believe the government is the solution to every problem. We believe the individual and the family and the community and the church, that those are the bedrocks of what makes us a strong community. So I just want to say thank you, all of you, for being here. We have Judge McCarthy, who's on the appellate division. You know, this poor guy, he can't come out once every 14 years. And it's kind of like, you know, he comes out like a locust, and he's out there. And it's now his time to come out. But it's very important that we have judges who will interpret the law and not make the law. And that's the kind of judge he is. He's fair, he's decent, he's honest. We have your sheriff here, who is an absolutely marvelous, hardworking sheriff. And I'm so glad to see him here. He's really Sheriffs around our district, the 11 counties, we're bigger than Connecticut geographically in our district. Sheriffs around this district, speaking of SNAP and food stamps, they tell me that virtually every drug dealer they arrest has got a food stamp card in his pocket. You know, because he's not declaring any income. And that's really that's a lot of what's going on. I mean, so I'm really glad the sheriff is here. I'm so pleased that Chris Tagg is here. He is working hard. Anyone that you know in Saugerties, any person, if you can persuade them, if you can cajole them, if you can convince them, or you can trick them to come out and vote for Chris on Tuesday, please do it, because I've known him, like George, I've known Chris for many years. He's an honest, decent, hardworking guy, worked himself up from the bottom in the company, started as a laborer, now as the general manager of a company with 200 employees. Really solid person, understands what it is to work for a living. So I just want to tell you thank you. It truly has been an honor for me the last 15 months to represent the people. I listen to everyone. I respond to everyone. And don't let these folks on the other side perpetuate the lie that somehow we are not listening to them. I listen to everyone, and I try to take what everyone says into account as to how we conduct ourselves in office. And every day I go in there, I just kind of pinch myself and think, I'm walking in under that dome of the Capitol. And it's not so much that I'm there and it's in Washington, it's that I'm thinking of my mother and my father. You know, my father was a TV repairman and he was a janitor, and he was a guy who could fix anything. And my mother worked as a bank teller. When at 5 kids, she went to work, and all she could ever get was an assistant manager job ultimately in the bank, because at that time, women weren't allowed to be bank managers. We're talking about in the early 70s when she went back into the workforce. And so I understand the struggles that people have and the issues that people have to try to make sure they can advance themselves. But we have to just go out and speak the truth as to the issues that we face in our communities and in our country. Defending our country against the threats that we have from abroad, making sure America is strong internally. If we don't have a strong economy, we will never be able to protect ourselves and perpetuate our way of life. This great, wonderful country that we have, which, yes, we have our flaws, yes, we have our imperfections, but this is still the place where people all around the world want to come, and where you can still make it. If you can make it in America, you can make it. And that's what the great thing is. So we have an obligation, a solemn obligation, to make sure we leave for our kids and our grandchildren a better country than what we found. That's why I'm running. That's why I'm down there. That's why Mary Frances is really great. She puts up with me in the schedule that we have. But that's why we do it, because we really believe in our country. We believe in self-government. We believe in our system. And I always think of my mother saying, try to catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. Thank you so much. God bless you. God bless America.
I was going to